Hi guys and welcome back. Today I'll talk about something new on this channel, something even controversial, and those are audiophile network switches. This one is called LHY SW-10. I'll be calling it Switch 10, which goes for $13.49 US. Look, all my reviews around here are subjective reviews, even my headphone reviews where I'm posting plenty of headphone measurements. All of those are subjective based on my own impressions, and this one will be no different. I didn't believe in network switches that they can make a difference for a very long time, but after testing several of them in the comfort of my home, I am now a believer. If music streaming is not so important to you and you didn't arrive at your ultimate DAC and streamer, then please go check some of my DAC reviews around the channel. But if you already arrived at your ultimate DAC and streamer and you want to further elevate your performance without changing anything in your setup, then this video is definitely for you. Ever since getting the Rockna Wavedream signature DAC and its complementary Wavedream Net music server slash wired streamer, I'm no longer using my PC as a digital transport. I'm no longer using DACs in between my PC and my DAC simply because I'm not using my PC anymore. Wavedream Net is actually a mini PC in a way, but it's enhanced for music playback, for music transport, so it sounds better compared to a PC and a DAC. So my signal path right now is the Wavedream Net, followed by Wavedream Signature DAC via I2S, then by a Chord Ultima 3 preamplifier, Ultima 5 power amplifier, and those CAF reference-free loudspeakers. In my Hi-Fi setup, just remove those Ultima 3 and Ultima 5 with a Trafomatic Primavera and IEMs I'm 23R, and you'll have my headphone setup. Before I tell you what differences it brought to my Hi-Fi and stereo setups, let's talk a little bit about its build quality, about controls, and about what you can find under its hood. LHY Audio made sure that all of their Ethernet switches would look like proper hi-fi components near a rack full of high-end goodies. This thing is beautifully crafted on CNC machines from a single block of aluminum. Even its internal layout has 3 independent rooms, one for its power supply, one for its DC filtering, and one for its switch with a massive clock inside. So it's not your usual D-Link or TP-Link network switches. This is something else entirely. It's much bigger, much wider, and much heavier. And it's reminiscent of a high-end DAC more than of an Ethernet switch. It doesn't have a single button, so it doesn't have a complicated layout. It has just a single on-off switch on its back. You have a low-intensity LED light on its front, and everything was moved on its back, where you will find 2 gigabit Ethernet SVP ports that should give you maximum performance. If you don't use a media converter yet, or if your internet provider offers you an Ethernet connection only to your home, then you can use any of its 8 gigabit Ethernet ports. It already uses a massive oven-controlled high-precision clock, but if you want to sync it with an external clock generator, then they are offering you that option via locking type BNC connectors. Under the hood of Switch 10, these guys followed every single rule that a high-quality hi-fi equipment should have. So we have an MI noise filter, we have 2 encapsulated linear transformers and several filtering caps, we have a multi-stage DC filtering and high-speed DC rectifier, we have a high-precision oven-controlled clock, and obviously a business-grade gigabit Ethernet switch made by Cisco. You gotta love the honesty of these guys, because at the end of the day, this is actually a Cisco switch with some upgraded power supply, filtering, and clocking. Okay guys, so this is pretty much it. Let's check how this one sounds, putting it in between my router and my wired streamer. I borrowed a pair of Rido TD 2.2 speakers for about a month, and some of my closest friends were waiting for some preliminary impressions, but 3 days later all they got was radio silence, because something was truly off sounding with these loudspeakers. And that was actually a big, unpleasant surprise, because at the local dealer they sounded much better, and they have exactly the same setup, the same DAC, preamp, streamer, power amp, the same speakers and cables, and yet there was a major difference in terms of sound. The timing was off, that was the biggest difference. There was a very unnatural vibration to the sound. The vocals, not natural at all. Treble, very fake sounding. It had a very unnatural ringing in the treble. The sound was not natural, it was somehow digital, so something was not clicking into place. Although in terms of technical performance, these were very clean, highly resolving, super fast sounding in terms of transient response, and it will be a real challenge outperforming them at their own game, which is resolution, speed, transients and all of that. But still, I couldn't enjoy my tunes. So I'm calling my buddy Catalin, which is very much into streaming. He also owns a high-end stereo and Hi-Fi setup. He also owns a pair of Rido TD 1.2, and he tells me on the phone that he knows exactly what I need, and 1 hour later he comes with an LHY SW-10, which is basically the entry-level switch of LHY audio, which costs $600. And we started listening to music, and I do believe that words were unnecessary because the body language was revealing basically everything. The music was finally smooth, organic, everything was putting more naturally. Forget about the digitus or brightness, listening fatigue, all that went out of the window. Everything was much more contoured. The notes were more defined, clearer sounding at the same time, and also the void spaces in between the notes was much bigger. All that unnatural vibration was no longer there, and finally the voices sounded so much more real sounding. So not natural, but real sounding. Soul grabbing, all of that. Finally I could enjoy my tunes just in a second. The difference was there, and the difference was big. Actually, it made the biggest difference in my chain. I don't know a single component that made such a big difference in terms of sound performance overall, so I was actually quite shocked. We put even more music, and there was some sort of musicality that was not present before, and it's weird saying this about electronica music, but even electronica was more natural sounding in a way. The digitus was no longer present. Trebles were much more defined, clearer, but without becoming harsh. And also female singers, where I was lowering the volume, I was now increasing the volume because they were putting goosebumps all over my hands. So it was a very different experience with the switch in place. A bit is a bit, right? All DACs should sound the same, right? And all cables sound the same, right? The thing is, we are not digital creatures. We are not listening to music via an audio precision apx 555 audio analyzer. We are human beings. We are hearing but also feeling the sounds. With digital audio, there are so many variables that cannot be measured, that no, you cannot measure them, but still you can hear them and you can feel them. I talked to plenty of audio engineers off camera, and all of them confirmed me that there are things that you cannot measure, but still you can hear that and you can feel that. So when I was listening to the Rockna WaveDream net connected to the Rockna WaveDream signature DAC via its internal 4 TB drive, connected via I2S to the WaveDream signature, the sound was amazing. So when I was using offline music playback without any kind of Ethernet, internet connection and so on, the sound was amazing. It was exactly how a proper high-end setup should sound. Everything was clicking into place, very natural, super holographic, super big sounding, dynamic, very punchy sounding, and also lifelike sounding. But when I was moving to Qobuz and Tidal, something was happening. The dynamics were lower, detail retrieval was going down, naturalness was no longer there. And I thought that maybe Qobuz and Tidal was doing something that is, changing the sounds, but it seems that not Tidal and Qobuz was the problem, but that Ethernet connection, which, Rockna is not filtering in any way. So when I added this one in between my router and the Rockna WaveDream net, which is basically, a mini PC with a linear power supply, the short version, Then finally, local playback from that 4 terabyte drive sounded exactly the same like Tidal on Qobuz. There was a very minor difference, but it was close to nothing. So everything came back: naturalness, holography, stereo imaging, naturalness. I told that already, yes. The flow of the music, dynamics, the punch in the bass, everything just returned home. So finally I can enjoy streaming as much as I'm enjoying offline music playback. I can summarize the biggest differences that SW-10 brought to the surface in my system with just 3 words, and that would be timing and noise floor. You wouldn't believe how much noise is coming from your internet provider via those Ethernet cables. And when I added this one in between my router and that Wavedream net, was that the music is simply playing louder. And that was kind of unusual, because the music was not playing louder, but the void spaces, in between the notes was not just white noise, but it was pure black silence. So when everything is silent in between the passages, then the music is more defined, sharper, clearer. You can hear it much easier, and you don't need to go higher with the volume. So that was very interesting, that I felt that the music is louder, although it wasn't. The leading edges were sharper, everything was more clearer, because the noise floor went down considerably. So when the noise floor goes down, obviously all those small intricacies, inner details are going to the surface, so you start hearing additional, nuances, details. And that can make a major difference, especially in a high-end setup where there aren't additional ladders to climb. It felt as if I upgraded my DAC to the ultimate version, coming from a distant future. The second biggest difference was in terms of timing. My KEF reference 3 that you see behind me are fast sounding, but those are not rider fast. And the timing difference was felt much bigger on the riders and not so much on the KEFs. And the difference was so big that I simply refused to listen to music without the switch in place. And I do believe that the timing is pretty much the most important thing in audiophilia, especially in high-end audio. After a lifetime's work as an audio engineer at Audio Group Denmark, Lars Christensen told me that we humans, we hear in transients and not in frequency response. When everything is just right in terms of timing, the music will click into place. We don't really need a perfect frequency response, but we need a perfect timing, because everything will sound lifelike and just right, natural. And you know what? He's 100% right, because without it, music was fake. There was a natural ringing of the music, and with this one, the music was just real and lifelike. That was actually the biggest difference. A few days later, I decided using a more affordable setup just to see if the SW-10 will make a difference. So I used an Eversolo DMP A6 together with a just announced topping DX9, do-it-all Wonderbox, DAC, preamp, Bluetooth receiver and headphone amplifier, driving a hard-to-drive Hi-Fi Susvara. So I tried a more affordable setup to see if the SW-10 will make a difference. The Eversolo DMP A6 is actually a great sounding all-in-one unit. It's very feature-packed. It's one of the best, if not really the best unit at that exact price point. The only thing I don't like about the DMP A6, it's lightweight character that removes some meat from the bones. It's not very punchy, it's not very visceral, not very dynamic sounding unit. But these guys, LHY Audio, prepared an upgrade kit that will remove that switching out power supply with a linear power supply. It's a kit, so you can swap that pretty easily, and that should upgrade exactly dynamics of the DMP A6, the bass slam, the punch down low, everything should be upgraded with that power supply. So if you own the DMP A6, that should be an easy upgrade. So with the DMP A6 and with the DX9, I felt exactly the same what I felt with the big setup, with the stereo setup, but at a lower scale. The sound was sweeter. Again, the music was slightly more natural, and Hi-Fi Susvara in general, they need a very specific system matching to sound at its best. And although DX9 by Topping is not the absolute best pairing with the Hyphen Susvara, when I've added this one, the pairing was just a little bit better. So the sound was flowing, dynamics improved, the stereo image was more defined in a way, and the holography of the sound was better. Again, not at the same extent as it happened with the Rados, that is for sure. Still, if you want to further elevate your Head-Fi battle station, then please consider parting ways with the USB connection with your PC entirely. You can start with a wired streamer and then invest into an Ethernet switch. If Switch 10 is out of your budget, you can go with their lower grade Switch 6, which I also tried and I do believe sounds great. And everything combined will deliver you some unheard levels of detail retrieval, of transparency and natural flow of the music. You might want to check my comparison of the Switch 10 with a much pricier Melco S100/2. Everything can be found after the click in my written review that I left below. Please check that out. Wrapping things up, strange are the ways of networking, but this is the way, as Mandalorian puts it. Getting a wired streamer for your high-end DAC is a very good starting point, that is for sure, but please don't stop there. Clean up the signal and reclock it, and it will get even better from there. This is still a very controversial topic, that is for sure. So, if your blood pressure is very high right now, I totally understand that. But please be open-minded and be open to experimentation, as again, hearing is believing. It's still black magic to me how an Ethernet switch can change the sound of my setup, but it's all true. I tried about 4 Ethernet switches in the last 2 months or so, and while this one was not at the very top, with those unobtainium level network switches, it was very, very close to the best switches that I tried. So this one gets easily my highest gold award. This is pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. Please consider checking out my written review, which I left below, which I consider to be my in-depth review. And if you like my approach, please like and subscribe, be positive, and I'll see you very, very soon.